The sun beat down mercilessly on Meadowbrook Estates that July afternoon, the kind of heat that made the air shimmer above the asphalt and turned car steering wheels into branding irons. Alex Mercer wiped sweat from his brow as he lugged his beach bag toward the community pool, his 5-year-old daughter Lily skipping excitedly beside him. The move to his sister's guest house last month had been a blessing after the divorce drained his savings, but these small moments with Lily during his weekend custody were what kept him going. "Daddy, hurry up. I want to show you my cannonball." Lily tugged at his hand, her pink unicorn swimsuit practically glowing against her summer tan. "I'm coming, sweetie. The pool isn't going anywhere." Alex laughed but quickened his pace. His sister Jamie had assured him that using the community pool wouldn't be an issue. She paid her hefty HOA fees religiously, and guests were allowed as long as they were accompanied by a resident. Jamie was working today but had texted him the gate code that morning. The Meadowbrook Estates pool was legendary in this part of town, Olympic-sized with a separate waiting area for kids, pristine blue water that was always the perfect temperature, and lounge chairs that didn't wobble or pinch your skin. Alex punched in the code at the gate, feeling a small thrill at the satisfying click as it unlocked. The pool area was busy but not crowded. A few teenagers lounged on the far side, a couple of parents watched toddlers splash in the shallow end, and several adults swam laps in the main pool. Alex found an empty spot near the kiddie area and set down their bags. "Okay, lily pad, let's get you." "Excuse me." A sharp voice cut through the ambient chatter and splashing. Alex turned to find a woman standing behind him, arms crossed over her floral tankini. She had the kind of precision-cut bob that seemed to require weekly maintenance and oversized designer sunglasses perched on a nose that appeared to be perpetually turned upward. "I don't recognize you. Are you a resident here?" Something in her tone immediately put Alex on edge. "No. I'm staying with my sister, Jamie Mercer. She lives on Sycamore Drive." The woman's lips pressed into a thin line. "And where is Jamie today?" "She's at work. I'm watching my daughter this weekend." Alex gestured to Lily, who was already dipping her toes in the water, oblivious to the brewing confrontation. "I see." The woman's voice dropped an octave, taking on the authoritative tone of someone about to reference a rulebook. "Well, I'm Karen Whitfield, HOA board secretary. The bylaws clearly state that guests must be accompanied by the resident homeowner at all times in common areas." Alex's stomach nodded. "My sister gave me the code. She said it wouldn't be a problem." Karen's eyebrows shot up over her sunglasses. "The code? How exactly did you get the code?" Her voice rose just enough that a few nearby parents glanced their way. "Like I said, Jamie gave it to me. Look, it's 95 degrees today." "My daughter just wants to swim for an hour," Alex said, trying to keep his voice low and reasonable. "Rules are rules, sir. I'm going to have to ask you to leave immediately, or I'll be forced to call security." Karen pulled out her phone as if to emphasize the threat. "We've had problems with non-residents using our amenities, and the board has implemented a zero-tolerance policy." Alex felt his face flush, not just from the heat. Lily had noticed the conversation and was walking back toward him, confusion clouding her excited expression. "Daddy, can't we swim?" Before Alex could answer, Karen stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. Either your sister comes to accompany you or you need to leave. Otherwise, I'll have to report this incident and have your sister fined." Alex looked from Karen to his daughter's disappointed face, feeling the familiar burn of parental failure creeping up his spine. But then he remembered something that might just wipe that smug expression right off Karen's face. A slow smile spread across Alex's face as the realization dawned on him. It was the same smile he perfected during his years as a paralegal, the one that appeared right before he handed an attorney the document that would win their case. "Actually, Karen," he said, keeping his voice deliberately casual, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." He knelt down to Lily's level. "Sweetie, can you go sit on that chair for just a minute while Daddy talks to this lady?" Lily nodded, casting a wary glance at Karen before trudging over to the lounge chair. Once she was out of earshot, Alex straightened up and met Karen's gaze directly. "The address you're looking for is 478 Sycamore Drive, correct?" he asked. Karen's eyebrows furrowed above her designer sunglasses. "Yes, Jamie Mercer's house. What about it?" "Well, here's the thing," Alex said, pulling out his phone. "Jamie doesn't live in Meadowbrook Estates. She lives in Sycamore Crossing, the development on the other side of this fence." He pulled up a map on his phone and turned it toward Karen, showing the property lines between the two neighboring communities. Meadowbrook Estates was highlighted in blue, while Sycamore Crossing was in yellow. The pool sat directly on the border between them. "I don't understand what you're getting at," Karen said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. "This pool facility is jointly owned and operated by both HOAs," Alex explained. "It was part of the original development agreement when they built these communities 5 years ago. Jamie pays her fees to Sycamore Crossing HOA, which contributes to the maintenance of this pool just as much as Meadowbrook does. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She pulled out her phone and began frantically scrolling through what appeared to be a PDF document. That's not possible. I've been on the board for 3 years, and we've never discussed any joint ownership arrangement. Maybe you should talk to your HOA president then, Alex suggested. My sister warned me about this. Apparently, it happens all the time, Meadowbrook residents assuming they have exclusive rights to the pool when it's actually shared. A bead of sweat rolled down Karen's temple that had nothing to do with the summer heat. Several onlookers had stopped pretending not to listen and were now openly watching the exchange. A man sitting nearby with a toddler gave Alex an encouraging nod. I'm going to have to verify this information, Karen said stiffly, her fingers typing rapidly on her phone. Be my guest, Alex replied, his confidence growing. In the meantime, my daughter and I are going to enjoy the pool that my sister's HOA fees help maintain. He turned away from Karen and walked over to Lily, who looked up at him with hopeful eyes. Can we swim now, Daddy? You bet, Lily pad. He helped her apply another layer of sunscreen to her shoulders, acutely aware of Karen still standing nearby, now engaged in what appeared to be an intense phone conversation. 10 minutes later, as Alex was helping Lily practice floating on her back, he noticed Karen marching toward the gate, her beach bag clutched tightly under her arm, phone still pressed to her ear. She didn't look in their direction as she punched in the exit code and disappeared. The man with the toddler paddled over to the edge of the pool near Alex. That was impressive, he said, extending a dripping hand. I'm Mark. Live over on Elm Street in Sycamore Crossing. Alex shook his hand. Alex, my sister's on Sycamore Drive. Karen's been doing that all summer, Mark confided, acting like she owns the place. She chased away my brother-in-law last weekend with the same routine. How'd you know about the joint ownership thing? Alex watched Lily splash happily in the shallow end before answering. I didn't. Mark's eyebrows shot up. Wait, you mean you? Made it up completely. Alex grinned. Yep. I had no idea if it was true or not, but Jamie told me there was some kind of dispute between the HOAs about the pool access. I just connected the dots and sounded confident. Mark threw his head back and laughed. That's brilliant, but you know she's going to come back once she figures out you were bluffing, right? Alex shrugged. Maybe. But by then, I'll have enough time to get Jamie on the phone. She's the one who actually pays the HOA fees, after all. And if Karen wants to take it up with her. He trailed off, thinking of his sister's formidable personality and raw degree. I'd pay good money to see that showdown. Mark chuckled. As if on cue, Alex's phone buzzed with a text from Jamie. How's the pool? Any issues with the gate code? Alex typed back quickly. No problem with the code. Met the HOA secretary, though. Karen something. Might have told her the pool is jointly owned by both HOAs. Can you back me up if she calls you? The reply came almost instantly. Oh, me gee, yes. Karen Whitfield has been a nightmare since I moved in. Tell her whatever you want. I've got your back. Alex smiled and put his phone away. The afternoon stretched before them, bright and blue as the pool water. Maybe this weekend custody visit would turn out better than expected after all. But as he helped Lily practice her kicks, he couldn't shake the feeling that Karen Whitfield wasn't the type to admit defeat so easily. This pool confrontation was just the beginning. The next morning dawned just as scorching as the previous day. Alex made pancakes shaped like dolphins for Lily, scrolling through his phone as she carefully drizzled syrup over her breakfast. There were 3 missed calls from Jamie and a text that simply read, Call me ASAP, Karen drama escalating. Alex waited until Lily was absorbed in a cartoon before stepping onto Jamie's back patio to return the call. What happened? He asked the moment Jamie picked up. Karen Whitfield showed up at my door last night, Jamie said, her voice a mixture of annoyance and amusement. In person, Alex? At 8:30 on a Saturday evening. You're kidding. Alex pinched the bridge of his nose. What does she want? Well, first she demanded to see the HOA documents proving joint ownership of the pool. When I told her I'd have to dig through my files, she started lecturing me about proper guest etiquette and how I needed to accompany any guests personally. Jamie's voice took on a mocking tone as she imitated Karen. Then she threatened to bring it up at the next board meeting and proposed stricter enforcement measures. Alex groaned. I'm sorry, Jamie. I didn't think she'd take it this far. Are you kidding? This is the most entertainment I've had in months, Jamie laughed. I told her I'd be happy to discuss it at the board meeting, especially since I've been meaning to bring up the landscaping encroachment from her side of the property line that's been killing my hydrangeas. You don't even have hydrangeas, Alex pointed out. She doesn't know that, Jamie said smugly. Anyway, she left in a huff, but not before informing me that as board secretary, she would be documenting yesterday's incident. Alex leaned against the patio railing, watching a hummingbird dart between Jamie's flower pots. So what happens now? Now Jamie said, her voice taking on the confident tone she used in the courtroom. We go on the offensive. I did some digging after she left. Turns out Karen Whitfield has been using her position to selectively enforce HOA rules for years. Remember Mark from the pool? I called him last night and he put me in touch with half a dozen Meadowbrook residents who've had run-ins with her. And? Alex prompted, sensing there was more. And the pool actually is shared, sort of. It's on Meadowbrook property, but there's an easement agreement that guarantees Sycamore Crossing residents access because the original developer planned it as one community before splitting it into two developments. Alex nearly dropped his phone. Wait, so I was right. The pool is shared. Not exactly how you described it, but close enough, Jamie confirmed. Karen's been getting away with this gatekeeping routine because most people don't know about the easement or don't want to cause trouble. But here's the kicker. The current Meadowbrook HOA president, David Chen, has been trying to improve relations between the communities. Karen's been undermining him at every turn. Alex whistled low. So she's not just a power-tripping HOA secretary. She's actively working against her own board president. Exactly. And David wants to meet us at the pool today at noon. Says he owes us an apology and wants to clear things up personally. Alex glanced through the sliding glass door at Lily, who was still happily watching cartoons. I promised Lily we'd go to the park this morning, but we could swing by the pool after lunch. Perfect, Jamie said. I'll meet you there. Oh, and Alex, wear your blue swim trunks. Why? Because they match your eyes and David Chen is single. Alex rolled his eyes, though a small smile played at his lips. Goodbye, Jamie. 2 hours later, after an exhausting morning at the playground, Alex and Lily returned to Jamie's house to change into their swimsuits. As they walked toward the community pool, Alex spotted a small crowd gathered near the entrance gate. His stomach dropped when he recognized Karen's distinctive bob at the center of the group. Is that the mean lady from yesterday? Lily asked, her small hand tightening around Alex's. Yes, sweetie, but don't worry. Aunt Jamie is going to help us sort everything out. Alex scanned the crowd and spotted his sister standing confidently near a tall, well-dressed Asian man who must be David Chen. As they approached, the conversation ceased and all eyes turned to them. Karen's face flushed red upon seeing Alex, but before she could speak, David Chen stepped forward, hand extended. Mr. Mercer, I'm David Chen, Meadowbrook Estates HOA president. I understand there was some confusion yesterday about pool access. Alex shook his hand. Please call me Alex. And yes, there seemed to be some disagreement about whether my daughter and I were allowed to use the pool as guests of my sister. David nodded gravely. On behalf of our HOA, I want to apologize for any misunderstanding. I've been reviewing our bylaws and community agreements, and it appears there is indeed an easement that guarantees Sycamore Crossing residents and their guests access to this facility. Karen stepped forward, clutching a folder to her chest. David, I really think we should discuss this in private before making any official statements. The board hasn't voted. The board doesn't need to vote on existing legal agreements, Karen. David interrupted smoothly. The easement was established when the communities were developed. It's binding. The crowd murmured, and Alex noticed several people nodding in agreement. Furthermore, David continued, I've received multiple complaints about selective enforcement of our community guidelines. As of today, I'm forming a rules review committee to ensure fair and consistent application of our bylaws. Karen's face had gone from red to white. You can't do that without board approval. Actually, as president, I can create ad hoc committees as needed, David countered. And I'd like to invite residents from both communities to participate. He turned to Jamie. Ms. Mercer, would you be interested in serving as the Sycamore Crossing representative? Jamie beamed. I'd be delighted. As the implications of what was happening sank in, Karen's grip on her folder tightened until her knuckles turned white. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and everyone present could feel it. Alex bent down to Lily's level. Looks like we can go swimming now, Lily pad. Good, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. That lady was mean, and being mean isn't allowed at the pool. A ripple of laughter swept through the gathered residents, and even David struggled to maintain his professional demeanor. Karen Whitfield stood frozen for a moment, then turned on her heel and marched toward the parking lot, her shoulders rigid with indignation. As the crowd dispersed, David approached Alex again. Your daughter is quite perceptive, he said with a warm smile. And I understand I have you to thank for bringing this situation to light. I was just trying to give my daughter a nice day at the pool, Alex replied honestly. David nodded. Sometimes that's all it takes to spark necessary change. He hesitated, then added, perhaps you consider joining us for the community barbecue next weekend? As a thank you. Before Alex could respond, Jamie appeared at his side. He'd love to, she answered for him, giving Alex a not-so-subtle nudge. As they finally made their way to the pool, Alex couldn't help but feel that what started as a simple afternoon swim had somehow morphed into something much more significant, not just for him and Lily, but for both communities. The community barbecue turned out to be significantly more eventful than Alex had anticipated. When Jimmy first insisted he attend, he pictured a quiet afternoon of awkward small talk and mediocre hot dogs. Instead, he found himself at the center of what residents from both communities had started calling the pool revolution. David Chen had set up the barbecue in the grassy area between the pool and the playground, with clear signs welcoming residents from both Meadowbrook Estates and Sycamore Crossing. Colorful balloons marked the boundary between the two communities, a boundary that, according to the newly uncovered documents David had found in the HOA archives, was never meant to be as rigid as it had become. "Daddy, look." Lily tugged at Alex's hand, pointing toward the pool where children from both neighborhoods played together without concern for property lines or easement agreements. "Everybody's having fun now." "That's right, Lilypad," Alex agreed, watching as Jamie chatted animatedly with a group of Meadowbrook residents. His sister had thrown herself into her role on the Rules Review Committee with characteristic enthusiasm, already proposing joint community events and shared maintenance schedules. "Alex, there you are." David Chen approached, carrying 2 paper plates loaded with barbecue. He handed one to Alex. "I was hoping to catch you. The committee had its first meeting yesterday." Alex accepted the plate gratefully. "How did it go?" "Productive," David replied, gesturing for Alex to join him at a nearby picnic table. "We've outlined a new set of guidelines that explicitly acknowledge the shared nature of the pool facility. No more confusion about guest policies." "That's great," Alex said. "What about Karen? Has she accepted the changes?" David's expression shifted slightly. "Karen tendered her resignation as board secretary the day after our confrontation at the pool, said she needed to focus on personal matters." Alex raised an eyebrow, sensing there was more to the story. "Between us," David continued, lowering his voice, "several residents came forward with stories about Karen's selective enforcement practices. Not just about the pool. Apparently, she's been using her position to settle personal grudges for years, targeting certain residents for minor violations while ignoring the same infractions from her friends." "That's awful," Alex said, genuinely surprised at the extent of Karen's power trip. "The board was prepared to ask for her resignation if she hadn't offered it," David admitted. "We've already elected an interim secretary. Mark, actually. The guy you met at the pool. He's been a refreshing change. Actually reads the bylaws before trying to enforce them." As they continued talking, Alex couldn't help but notice how animated David became when discussing his vision for the community. The HOA president clearly cared deeply about bringing people together rather than creating arbitrary divisions. "I have to ask," Alex said when there was a lull in the conversation. "Why did you act so quickly on this pool situation? Most HOA boards I've heard about would have dragged their feet, formed multiple committees, held votes." David took a sip of his lemonade before answering. "I moved here from San Francisco 3 years ago. My previous community had an HOA president like Karen, someone who saw rules as weapons instead of guidelines for harmonious living. When I ran for board president here, I promised myself I'd never let power dynamics poison our community the way they did there." "That's surprisingly principled for an HOA president," Alex remarked. "No offense." David laughed. "None taken. HOAs have earned their reputation, but they don't have to be that way." He glanced over at the children playing in the pool. Communities work best when barriers come down, not when they go up. Their conversation was interrupted by Jamie, who flopped down beside them with a satisfied grin. "The joint community newsletter is officially happening," she announced proudly. "First issue next month. I'm thinking of calling it The Crossing Estates." "Catchy," David nodded approvingly. "And guess who volunteered to be our legal columnist?" Jamie nudged Alex. "Wait, what?" Alex nearly choked on his barbecue. "I didn't volunteer for anything." "You're a paralegal with experience in community disputes who single-handedly exposed overreach in HOA enforcement," Jamie countered. "You're perfect for it." Before Alex could protest further, a commotion near the pool gate caught everyone's attention. Karen Whitfield had arrived, dressed as if attending a formal garden party rather than a community barbecue. She stood rigidly by the entrance, surveying the mixed crowd of residents with thinly veiled disapproval. A hush fell over the nearest tables as people noticed her presence. Even the children seemed to sense the tension, their pool games quieting momentarily. David immediately stood up. "I should go talk to her," he said quietly. "Everyone deserves to feel welcome, even former board members with complicated histories." As David walked toward Karen, Alex watched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The confrontation at the pool gate had set in motion changes nobody had anticipated, least of all Alex himself, who had only wanted to give his daughter a fun afternoon swim during his custody weekend. "Do you think she's here to cause trouble?" Jamie whispered, sliding closer to Alex on the bench. I don't know, Alex admitted, but I think David can handle it. They watched as David greeted Karen cordially, gesturing toward the barbecue and speaking in what appeared to be a friendly, welcoming manner. Karen's posture remained stiff, but she nodded occasionally as David spoke. After what seemed like an eternity but was probably only a few minutes, Karen handed David what looked like an envelope, turned on her heel, and walked back toward the parking lot without joining the barbecue. That can't be good, Jamie murmured as David made his way back to their table, envelope in hand and a puzzled expression on his face. Everything okay? Alex asked when David rejoined them. David held up the envelope. She brought this for you, actually, he said, passing it to Alex. Said it was important that you receive it today. Alex stared at the envelope, his name written on the front in precise, angular handwriting. For me? Why would Karen Whitfield be bringing the mail? Only one way to find out, Jamie prodded, curiosity evident in her voice. With a sense of foreboding, Alex opened the envelope and unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. As he read the contents, his expression shifted from concern to disbelief and finally to something like reluctant admiration. Well, Jamie demanded when Alex remained silent too long. What does it say? 3 weeks after the community barbecue, life in the neighboring developments had settled into a new rhythm. The Joint Rules Committee had published their unified guidelines. The first issue of the Crossing Estates newsletter was at the printer, and Alex had somehow found himself not only writing a legal advice column, but also having dinner with David Chen twice already. On this particular Sunday afternoon, Alex sat on the edge of the pool watching Lily practice her underwater handstands with a group of children from both communities. Jamie lounged beside him, sunglasses perched on her nose and a dog-eared legal brief in her hands. You know, Jamie mused without looking up from her reading, I never thought I'd say this, but we kind of owe Karen Whitfield. Alex snorted. For what? Being an unreasonable tyrant? For bringing the communities together, Jamie clarified. Think about it. Before your pool confrontation, most of us barely knew our neighbors across the property line. Now we're planning joint Halloween festivities. The maintenance costs are being shared fairly, and you're dating the Meadowbrook HOA president. We're not dating, Alex protested, though he couldn't help the slight smile that tugged at his lips. We're just getting to know each other. Jamie lowered her sunglasses to fix him with a skeptical look. You made him dinner at my house on Thursday. You're dating. Before Alex could formulate a response, Mark hurried over to their chairs, tablet in hand and an urgent expression on his face. You guys need to see this, he said, dropping into the chair beside them. Karen's back. What do you mean back? Alex asked, instantly alert. She resigned from the board. Not from the community, Mark pointed out, turning his tablet so they could see the screen. She just submitted a formal proposal to the Meadowbrook Architectural Review Committee. She wants to build a fence. Jamie sat up straight. A fence? Where? Mark zoomed in on the satellite map displayed on his tablet, right here, along the eastern border of her property. Alex studied the map, trying to place the location in his mind. That's directly adjacent to the pool access path from Sycamore Crossing, isn't it? Bingo, Mark confirmed grimly. If approved, her fence would cut off the most direct route from your community to the pool. Everyone would have to walk an extra quarter-mile around to get there. That can't be legal, Jamie protested, her lawyer instincts kicking in. The easement agreement only covers the pool facility itself, not the access paths, Mark finished for her. David and I looked through the documents yesterday when her application came in. The easement guarantees Sycamore Crossing residents the right to use the pool, but it doesn't specify how they get there. Alex felt a headache forming behind his eyes, so she found a loophole. A Karen-sized loophole, Jamie agreed, pulling out her phone. I'm calling David. As Jamie stepped away to make her call, Alex watched Lily playing in the water, blissfully unaware of the adult drama unfolding poolside. The past few weeks had been good for her. She'd made new friends, grown more confident in the water, and even stopped asking why Mommy and Daddy couldn't live in the same house anymore. The thought of Karen Whitfield disrupting this newfound stability made something protective and determined stir in Alex's chest. What are the chances the committee approves her fence? He asked Mark. The interim secretary grimaced. Hard to say. On the surface, it's a standard privacy fence on her own property. There's no explicit rule against it. And as much as things have improved, there are still board members who think Meadowbrook amenities should be primarily for Meadowbrook residents. Alex nodded slowly, an idea forming. You mentioned she submitted her proposal to the Architectural Review Committee. When do they meet to review it? Tomorrow evening, Mark said. Why? Because I think I need to do some research tonight, Alex replied, a determined glint in his eye. The next morning, Alex called in sick to work and spent hours at the county records office. By afternoon, he was poring over property maps and development plans in Jamie's living room, occasionally making notes or taking photos with his phone. Are you going to tell me what you're looking for? Japing asked, peering over his shoulder at the sprawl of documents. Not until I'm sure, Alex muttered, tracing a line on one of the older maps. But I think Karen made a miscalculation. At precisely 7:00 p.m., Alex walked into the Meadowbrook Community Center for the Architectural Review Committee meeting. The room was already half full, with curious residents from both communities filling the chairs. At the front, the committee members sat at a folding table, with David presiding at the center. Karen Whitfield sat in the front row, back straight, and a thick folder of documents on her lap. David called the meeting to order, explaining the purpose and introducing the various proposals up for review. Karen's fence was last on the agenda, and as the meeting progressed through routine approvals for deck extensions and solar panel installations, the tension in the room steadily increased. Finally, David announced, next item, application from resident Karen Whitfield for a 6-foot privacy fence on the eastern boundary of her property at 237 Magnolia Court. Karen stood and presented her proposal with clinical precision, displaying renderings of the attractive wooden fence that would, incidentally, completely block the most convenient path between Sycamore Crossing and the community pool. The fence is fully compliant with all Meadowbrook guidelines, she concluded smoothly. It doesn't exceed the height restrictions, uses approved materials, and is entirely on my property. I see no grounds for denial. Thank you, Ms. Whitfield, David said neutrally. Before the committee votes, are there any community comments on this proposal? Alex stood up, acutely aware of every eye in the room turning toward him. I'd like to address the committee, if I may. Karen's expression flickered with momentary surprise before settling back into polite indifference. The floor is yours, Mr. Mercer, David said, giving him an encouraging nod. Alex walked to the front of the room, tablet in hand. While Ms. Whitfield is correct that her proposed fence meets the HOA guidelines, there's a significant issue that hasn't been addressed. He connected his tablet to the projector, displaying an image of an old survey map. This is the original property survey from when Meadowbrook and Sycamore Crossing were first developed. He traced a highlighted line running through Karen's property. This line represents an underground water main that services both communities. According to county regulations, no permanent structures can be built within 10 feet of this utility line, including fences with concrete footings, which Ms. Whitfield's design requires. A murmur swept through the room as Alex switched to a more recent utility map. I confirmed with the County Water Authority today that this easement is still active and enforceable. Any fence built along the